can't you? So this week's food challenge was supposed to be a Canadian type of theme in regards to what kind of dish you made. And I was a little worried about that going into it because the options that I had with the food that I had in my house and the grocery stores by my house were very minimal in creating something that was legitimately Canadian 100%, whether it be French Canadian cuisine or indigenous foods or even different types of desserts. Like, I'm not gonna lie when I say this, I don't even like beaver tails or Nanaimo bars. Beaver tails, I'm not even 100% sure are entirely Canadian from the get go, but most of the stuff that I found were either poutine, desserts, or Canadian pizza, which I had technically already covered with my calzone. So I didn't think that there were that many options to begin with. So I thought, okay, what are some restaurants, what are some chains that you can instantly identify as being Canadian? And the most Canadian restaurant I can think of is Tim Hortons. So much so that even when I was staying in New York for a vacation back in high school, there was one right across the hotel in New York, which I just love that Canadian restaurants are so popular that they had to get a couple of them in the US somehow. So, for those who don't know, Tim Horton was an NHL hockey player who ended up becoming his own entrepreneur by making these different coffee shops called Tim Hortons. And the major selling point are their donut holes, which they like to call Timbits. And boy, Timbits are some of the best guilty pleasure junk food you could possibly come up with. They're so small, but just with a couple bites, you feel as if you've eaten so much, which is one of the major appeals of eating donuts in particular. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make Timbits from scratch, hopefully honey dipped donuts, because those are my favorite flavor. And initially, I thought it was going to be even more trickier than it ended up being, which still was a huge pain in the ass because I did this completely by myself. And I spent an entire week trying to look up different Tim Hortons or even Krispy Kreme and Dunkin' Donuts recipes, or allegedly they were Dunkin' Donuts recipes. And that was the one that I settled for based on the picture, based on the ingredients that I already had in my house. I had yeast, I have a shit ton of all-purpose flour. We just got vanilla extract at our house a couple weeks ago in order to make these caramels that I can't specifically say in this video, or can I? Okay, I guess I can. But in any case, we had all the stuff we needed to make honey dip donuts, and I thought that would be 100% perfect. So I reread the recipe hundreds of times over the course of this past week. I watched the Basics with Babish donut video on how not just how different the recipes of donut doughs can be, but how very simple yet kind of tricky at the same time it is to fry a donut, because if you do it for longer than a minute, you're basically fucked. They cook fairly quickly. And something that I didn't completely anticipate making the donut holes was that they do cook up a lot quicker. I, for whatever reason, thought that it would be 45 seconds to 60 seconds, but that did not end up being the case. So there's a reason you didn't see my first 6 or 10. They still tasted really good, but they were a little too brown and a little too crisp to show on camera. And something I didn't show on camera was just how sticky my dough ended up being. I showed you the basic steps on how to make a flour mixture with yeast and salt, and then a wet mixture with milk, butter, vanilla, and eggs, stuff like that. But when they mixed together, the recipe said that by the end of it, it should be soft but not yet sticky. But that was not the case, and weirdly enough, I even added extra flour into it, knowing for a fact that it was going to be bullshit, and even that wasn't enough. And there was a point where I panicked, where I spent a good 5 minutes putting extra flour, trying to put it on a surface area and knead it as well as I can, but it kept sticking, and I just thought, I'm accomplishing absolutely nothing by filming this. What's more important is that you get it right to begin with. So that's the reason I didn't show it. And there was one other thing I was going to show, and for whatever reason I wasn't recording, was how I made the dough rise as quickly as I did. And the recipe called for the oven to be preheated to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, to have a pot of boiling water so that you can pour it into a Wolff pan halfway through the boiling water, put the water in the oven, turn the oven off, and then once your dough is ready in another Wolff pan that's like rubbed to the brim with oil and butter to make sure that it doesn't stick, that was what made it rise faster. And if you're going to make donut dough, one very important thing. You know for a fact that it's ready to go when it A has doubled in size, but before you take it out just by doubling in size, poke it in the middle, and if it leaves a mark and the mark doesn't rise back up and replace itself, that's when you know that dough is ready to go. So I felt a lot better knowing that that step had been accomplished. And you probably saw very early on that the dough that I rolled out was maybe a little too thin for donuts, and that was absolutely the case. I thought that with a 15-minute rise on a towel, which was what you were supposed to do and what I did, I thought that it would have rised up a lot better. The first 5 or so, again, was not the case, but after I took the dough that was there and when there were so many holes, I just bundled it up together, rolled it back out. It had the consistency that I was looking for, which was a lot more plump, but was going to be a lot more crisp once you bit into it. So that part felt really good. And as for the honey glaze, it's a real good thing that I still had honey in my house because I had no idea anyone else here even used it. But yeah, confection sugar, vanilla, honey, hot water, melted butter makes such a good honey glaze that it really did taste like a Tim Horton's Timbit, and that was the best thing about making this dessert. And not gonna lie, I'll probably end up making more so like this in the future. In any case, guys, thanks as always for sitting through this rambling. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the Timbits. Let me know what your favorite type of donut is or your favorite donut chain to begin with, because a lot of people love Krispy Kreme. I love Krispy Kreme. I'd love it more if it was actually anywhere nearby my house, but in any case, let me know in the comments below. Be sure to stay tuned for more cooking videos every Friday, more Studio Ghibli reviews as part of my series, and be sure to like and subscribe. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go wash my hands, find some sanitizer, and get a mask, because the art house feeder by my house is about to play the Goonies.